My lovers, thank you for tuning in. We're almost reaching 500 subscribers. I appreciate you. I wanted to talk about, to some, this might be a controversial subject, but if you've watched my videos, you notice that I don't actually stop at every stop sign. And should I stop at every stop sign? Now, if you've been riding for long enough and you've been commuting for long enough, we've all gone into it with motor cars. They get super angry at cyclists, and they claim that one of the biggest claims is that cyclists don't follow the law.
Nice running of the stop sign back there.
Don't worry about me. So, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Now, when I do run stop signs, do I run every single stop sign? Do I run every single red light? No. Because I know my city well and I know which intersections are safer to cross and which are not as safe to cross, I don't, as a general rule, run every traffic signal that I see. But the law is actually on your side depending on the state that you live in. Let me explain. Okay, the law that I am citing is the Idaho Stop Law. The Idaho Stop Law allows cyclists to treat stop signs as yield signs. Cyclists can proceed through a stop sign if the way is clear and safe. At traffic signals, cyclists may proceed if the signal is red, but only after stopping and ensuring it's safe. The law aims to improve safety and efficiency for cyclists on the road. It applies only to bicycles and does not extend to motor vehicles. The law was enacted in 1982 and at the time was unique to Idaho. This has since changed and there are now 6 other states which include this law. The other states which this is now included, obviously Idaho 1982. In 2019, Arkansas now permitted the Idaho Stop, 2017 for Delaware, 2020 Oregon and Washington State, 2021 Utah and North Dakota, 2022 Oklahoma and Colorado, and 2023 Minnesota. So from what I just said, the law was enacted in Idaho in 1982, but for a lot of these states, it's been 35 to 40 years since they were able to pass in these other states. Now, obviously, the states that I read, that's about 10 states. There's a lot of states in the union that may or may not have enacted this law. So you really want to check with your local area to see if it applies. But for a lot of us who are old school riders, you know, I've been riding for about 15 years now in a serious way, riding on the road. This is new information for a lot of us. And so I think a lot of cyclists in the past kind of played loose and fast with the rules anyway because we're on bikes. But now you know that the law is on your side and that you really can't get a ticket for running a red light, at least in my state, where I have gotten that before. The recent popularity of electric bicycles, now the law does state motor vehicles. I don't know if electric bikes apply. I think it's kind of a gray area, but you should do more research to see if it applies to electric bicycles. With that in mind, I tend to be more conservative on an electric bike. Electric bikes are heavier. They can stay in the flow of traffic easier. They're faster than your analog bikes, human-powered bikes generally. Maybe if you're a super athlete, you can keep up. But for most of us who are just casual riders, you know, electric bike can keep up with traffic. So the keeping of momentum and efficiency through your momentum isn't as big a deal. So I feel more obligated to be conservative on my electric bike than I would on my analog bike. So just keep that in mind. For those of you who follow my channel, you may notice that I did make a video similar to this before, but the more I listened to it, the more I wanted to redo it, just because the main goal of this video is safety. It is not to imbue someone with righteous indignation and be like, well, the law's on my side, I'm just gonna not pay attention to the intersection and run on through, because it's not about that. Ultimately, when I run stop signs or red lights, I know what I'm running. I've ridden these routes before, and the first few times I ride these routes, I lean on the side of being more conservative. But the more I understand the flow of traffic in my city and I know which intersections and which stop signs are busier than others, I will follow these rules. Knowing that the law is on my side, that you actually do get to kind of turn a red light into a stop sign and a stop sign into a yield sign, it gives me more confidence on my ride to know that, hey, legally I'm I'm not going to get pulled over or cause any problems with the law if I do this, looking the way I do. If I see a police officer, I'm going to be ultra conservative, because one thing I want to leave with people is try not to get into arguments with cars. Try not to get into arguments with people. A lot of the time, cars will talk to you and try to talk smack at you. I tend to be relatively aggressive in terms of like telling people where to go with their opinion. But ultimately, what I'm not gonna do is start explaining the law to someone who doesn't care, right? Like, most motor vehicles don't know this law, and a lot of cyclists don't know this law. So I will explain this to cyclists who are coming on rides with me, but I'm not gonna explain it to people who are shouting at me from their car window, who can roll up their car and press on their gas accelerator and just run off anytime they want to once the light turns green. So this isn't for you to, again, have righteous indignation and start arguing with people. It's just to know your rules and know your safety. And I'm going to give you a few tips of when and how I use this law to my advantage. So I want to talk about some general guidelines of when to apply this Idaho Stop Law. As I mentioned before, obviously you don't want to just, this is not a law that says I can just blindly run into intersections, right? You still have to be scanning and looking and being hyper vigilant on the bike. So here are some guidelines to take with you if this is a new law and you're just learning this and you want to start applying it on the road. So one of my first guidelines is understanding that street riding on a bike is inherently dangerous. Now, you can minimize the danger, but there's always going to be an element of danger when you're riding your bike alongside with cars. So always be hyper vigilant when you're on your bike. Try to avoid headphones, I would say, because you want to hear all the sounds of the road. You want to hear everything that's going on. And also, probably with headphones, one of the reasons I don't use them, this is a side note, but you also want to be able to listen to your bike to see if, anything's creaking or sounding kind of odd. But just anything that maximizes your vigilance, play on the side of that. Anything that takes attention away from the road, try to minimize that. Another rule of thumb is always be scanning ahead. Always scan these intersections. Don't run into an intersection unless you've basically looked both ways plenty of times before you've done it. Okay, so when you see me run stop signs or you see me run red lights, I've been looking the whole time at traffic before I ever do that. Before I ever use that Idaho Stop Law, you always want to be scanning, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're right or the law's on your side if someone actually ends up hitting you, okay? A really, really good rule of thumb, this is something that my friends explained to me, I will give them credit for this when I started riding, is assume that cars cannot see you. Again, don't rely on the law alone to keep you safe. Pay attention. A lot of cars will give you the right of way, but if you can make eye contact with the driver, look inside the car, look at the driver's seat and see if you can make eye contact with the car. Sometimes cars will flash their lights at you, letting you know, hey, I see you, go ahead. Just try to make that acknowledgement that the car can see you. Otherwise, assume that they cannot. Knowledge of your routes is important. Pay attention. When you're first going on a route, be ultra conservative. The more and more you get comfortable, try to keep in mind which intersections are busier than others. There are intersections in the city where I absolutely will not go through them if the light is red. I will wait. If you're downtown or somewhere with a ton of cars, do not count on that law to save you. It will not. When it's mellower neighborhoods, you know the difference. Understand your city. Understand which stoplights are more mellow to run through, or to use the Idaho Stop Law, which red lights are more mellow to use that law, and which are not. There are some places in the city where I absolutely will not use that law to my advantage because you're gonna get hurt, okay? So again, know your city. Also, my last one is don't feel obliged to explain the law to every angry motorist. Just do your thing. If you ride long enough, you are gonna have people who are angry at you for whatever reason. Especially back in the day, I would wear my headphones and then I'd be unaware, and then you look and then there's this just livid person in their car just kind of screaming at you from inside the car, and you're just like, I don't know what they're angry about. But you gotta understand that most motorists don't know this law, and so in their mind, and then also like I said at the beginning of the video, these are recent laws and depending on the state. In my state of Washington, this law is only 5 years old. So don't expect most cars to understand this law. And a lot of I see it all the time. I see cars like cursing out people on bikes all day, every day. Like literally, like the one time they had to stop at a stop sign extra to let a bike go through, it's like ruins their day. And you know what? It's okay. It really is okay. Do not get into it with them. Or, you know, you can get into it with them if you want. I mean, you're an adult, but ultimately understand that they have a car, you have a bike. If they get like all road ragey on their car, way more dangerous than you running a stop sign on a bike. So let them be mad, let them curse you out, let them do their thing. Know that, look, you're gonna be gone and they'll get over it. It's like, and it's usually these people in these fancy cars or these big trucks that are overcompensating. Just don't even worry about it. Like, know your rights, know your laws. Do not feel obligated to explain the law to everyone. It's exhausting. Just do your thing. As long as you feel safe and you're doing the safest thing, you're gonna be all right. I've been riding for many years. I've never really had any close calls with any cars. I've never bumped into a car. I've never got into anything crazy with a car. It's just that cars get mad because in their perception, they think that you should abide by the same laws as motorized vehicles that weigh almost a ton do, and you don't. And so, like I said, if you're in any of those states, the law is on your side. And if you're not sure, just check with your local laws and see if that's something that you can afford. But ultimately, again, if you know your route, if you know what you're doing, that's the safest thing, being hyper vigilant, and always assume that cars cannot see you, and don't rely on these laws to keep you safe. You still have to go out there and pay attention to what's going on. If you got any comments, let me know, my lovers, if there's anything I missed out. I'm a little bit happy with this video because I really don't want to portray the idea that you should just use this law to blindly just run any stop sign and any red light that you see, that you still need to use vigilance and caution when riding. Thank you. Please stay safe out there. Wear all your protective gear. Lights